Hello, welcome to Tales of the Strange. I'm Kat White, and tonight we're going to be making characters for a new historical horror campaign called 1911 The Bankfleet Disappearances. I'd like to give thanks to the inimitable Steve for providing tech support tonight, which is a great boon to yours truly. I'm also joined by my fabulous companions, the illustrious Liz, the ingenious Sam, and the incorrigible Aaron. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves briefly, and while they're at it, I'd love it if they could tell us all what would scare them the most about living in the year 1911. If we could start off with Sam.
Well, firstly, hello to everyone. Yes, I am Sam. And if I'm to answer what would scare me personally most about living in 1911, it would probably have to be the build-up to World War I that was already massively underway, and by then seemed pretty damn inevitable. Yeah, what can I say? Nothing seems more terrifying than industrialized warfare.
Can't disagree with that one. What about you, Steve?
Yep, hi, I'm Steve, and obviously World War I would be first and foremost on people's minds, but I think another major aspect of that time period would be the labour strikes. There was unprecedented unrest amongst the workforce. You'd got the Troubles were kicking off over in Ireland, that was again putting further strain on work, and there was a major fear about how we would actually get jobs done, whether people would have work. All of this looming in the shadow of, as you say, an industrialised and mechanised war. It was a troubling time for both the common man and the political savvy.
Absolutely. Let's go to Liz. What do you think?
Hi, my name's Liz, and I have particularly looked at the women's suffrage movement, and I would feel scared that it would come to nothing, that women would not get the right to vote, and it would all be a terrible waste of time.
Thank you very much. And Aaron, how about you?
So I was going to go quite simple and say medical care. However, being ex-military, the gloom of World War I definitely would probably have to take precedence over that.
All right, thanks everybody. This leads me into a little disclaimer that I want to put right at the front of this campaign. History is fascinating. I love looking at it. I love studying it, and many people do, but it is also deeply problematic. I've been describing this upcoming campaign as a historical horror, but we should probably consider it more of an alternative historical horror, because we are choosing to soften much of the prejudice that suffused Britain at the time, if not remove it entirely. Now, this is not intended as an attempt to sanitize history, far from it. Instead, it's intended to create a game world that's comfortable for players and for the audience alike. That's our intention. I hope it comes across. Well, hopefully it'll be comfortable for the time being until characters start dropping like flies. Speaking of which, it's time to make a start on our characters themselves. So, hopefully we've got a couple of ideas already, potentially, about who we want to play. And our starting point is going to be class. I think this is going to be quite crucial, because obviously class had a huge role in 1911 in society then. But just a little bit of background on the campaign itself. So, you're going to be playing investigative journalists, something of a modern concept that I'm placing back in time, but anachronistically. You're working for a newspaper called The Auditor, and it's a maybe slightly left-leaning newspaper, but it's certainly not socialist propaganda things. And you're being summoned to the office of the editor, at least in the first game you will be, where you're given a specific task, an investigation to undertake. And you'll be sent off to a little community outside Birmingham, a place called Bankfleet, which strangely seems to be untouched by the industrial troubles of the time. There's a festival of capital that's taking place in Bankfleet at the moment, and you're there to cover that, but also to look into some strange disappearances that have been occurring. So that's sort of the background of the story. That's as much as I think I'm going to tell you at this point, because I don't really want to spoil it too much. But the first thing I asked everyone to do is to start thinking about your social class for your character, because I think this should be informing who you are and your resources and who you know and your skills and all that. So hopefully everyone's got a character sheet to hand. I'd love it if we could hear from each of you what social class you're thinking of at the moment.
Well, I think I will kick off, if only because having dressed to the nines, it's fairly obvious what I'm going for, so I buy everyone else time to think about it when I say, yes, I'm definitely going for a somewhat upper-class landed gentleman.
Fantastic. If you could pop in your history then for me, just that you're going for some upper class. Have you thought any at all about whether this is, are you nouveau riche? Are you from a landed aristocracy?
How disgusting. No, obviously. Obviously, some of us have breeding, I'll have you know. So,
okay.
yeah, landed.
Yeah. Fantastic. And are you still on good terms with your family? Is there a bit of a bankroll situation going on? Or are you very much an independent man standing on your own 2 feet?
Well, I mean, going into investigative journalism wasn't so disrespected in that period. Charles Dickens, in fact, spent much time doing the exact same career. Unfortunately, Mama and Papa were deeply, deeply unimpressed by the move towards, say, as they described it, socialist rag. After all, it was, slightly right of the times and therefore unacceptable. Slightly left of the times. What am I on?
All right. Okay, fantastic. Lovely to have a little bit of backstory working in there already. Steve, what are you thinking at the moment in time?
Yeah, so I'm thinking I would have started off as working class from a full-on working class family, coming from Edrington, which is a small suburb just outside of Birmingham. There would have been lots of mills working there, so kind of in the metal industries, and the character I'm thinking he would have benefited from the fairly new education system that had just literally within the last few years have been introduced to as part of a government initiative to help people. So he kind of benefited from that, still obviously leaving school at an early age, but was managed to then able to secure himself further education and has kind of clawed his way up. So he's now kind of like just tinkering on the middle class. But it's something that he's had to work hard to get to, and it's mainly because he's an educated fellow, but it puts him at odds with his social class for being so.
Fantastic. A grammar school boy, perhaps?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, Aaron, have you? I'm pretty sure you know what you're doing with this. Have you?
I have a rough idea. So yeah, more of a lower to working class sort of background. I like the idea of, as a kid, he struggled a little bit more, had to help out the family by acquiring some things, maybe breaking into the odd factory here and there to get parts to help repair up a bit around other family members' businesses or where they worked, or maybe just a still bit of food because they didn't get paid because they made a mishap in the factory. Has some level of education, but it's more because of corrective education, not through choice. But yeah, I've got a rough idea, but we'll see where it goes from there.
Fantastic. All right, and Liz, how about yourself? What strikes you?
I was thinking like Steve would, I don't know, in that time, would a woman be allowed to go out? Yeah.
Go out. Yeah. So
Like,
if you're asked, sorry.
Yeah, like I can imagine like she's kind of like a sort of young apprentice journalist that's kind of like left upper class family, is a little bit ashamed of her upper class sort of heritage, and has gone and like rented out like the attic of a working class family, and is a sort of apprentice for the paper.
Sure, you're sort of slumming it, as it were, having a taste of what it's really like in the real world.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. All right, fantastic. So just make sure you got a note, because it will probably come up somewhere in your history of what you imagine your background is in terms of social class. Right, I don't know. I actually think character names is one of those things that can be deceptively tricky to come up with, and maybe if you don't have it yet, we can come up with that later. But does anyone have a character name in mind?
I do.
Great.
I'm going to be Connor Peterson.
Right, I'm going to make a quick note of that. Connor Peterson. Fabulous. Anyone else got one, or are we still going to have a bit of a time to think and then come back to that later on?
I may have to circle back to this one.
Yep.
Frank Warren.
I like it.
Frank Warren. That's good. That's good.
My character's name is Nancy Portobello.
I misheard that. Frank Warren, Nancy Portobello.
Yes.
That's really nice. Are you a Miss Nancy Portobello, or is there a Right Honourable somewhere at the beginning of your name? Maybe even a lady.
Miss.
Definitely Miss. Okay, Miss Nancy Portobello. Based on your backgrounds, Steve and AJ, Aaron, I'm assuming that you're just Mister. Plain old.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Sam will give you a bit more time to think, and then because you might have to have several names.
Indeed, that's the problem.
Right. So typically with Chronicles of Darkness, your character should be founded on maybe a 3-word phrase, which gives you a hook into your character, a clear idea of who you are, and it should be a really concise concept to keep referring back to. So ideally, there should be about 3 words. Now, don't know whether anyone's had a chance yet to formulate your 3 words. It could be 3 words such as curious, infallible liar or something, I don't know, or student, librarian with passion. I don't know. Terrible examples. Let's see if you've got any better ones. Anyone got one already? Or do we need a little time?
Well, you've stolen one of my opening words, which is to go with curious.
Good.
The second most evident would be to refer to this character as a toff. I feel that gives enough descriptions through his approach to the class system Britain at that time. And finally, I suppose I would consider him somewhat headstrong, a little bit of impetuousness of youth. There you go, curious, headstrong toff.
Fantastic. 3 words right away. Steve,
Yep.
did you have one?
So I've gone for inquisitive, which again you almost got it with the curious. Determined and hardworking. Technically, they're kind of good things, but it's to the point of he's almost dogged in his pursuit of inquisitiveness. If you fight into something he wants to know about, he just doesn't know when to stop. So it borders on the stubborn.
Fantastic. Aaron, have you had a chance to think about it? Have you got any ideas?
I've got 1 or 2, but if you get back to me, I'm just concentrating on the final one, really, to make sure they don't contradict too heavily.
Okay. And how about yourself, Liz? Have you got any ideas in mind? Even if you've only got 1 or 2 words to begin with.
I've got passionate and naive.
Passionate and naive. Good start. So it suits what you seem to be doing with your character. Okay, lovely. Right. We've not quite got that yet. That's all right. We'll move on for those of you who are ready to... I did ask you all to come up with a little bit of a journalistic hook, like what your skills are. But I think we'll come back to that once we start assigning skills and etc. So let's think about virtue and vice. Now, for Chronicles of Darkness, for those who don't know, virtues and vices they're a tool. Not only are they character building hooks, they're tools that you can use. Your virtue, you can use it once in a campaign, and it'll get you all of a particular resource called willpower back. Your vice, you can use that once a chapter. It gives you 1 of your points of willpower back. They're quite powerful, but you usually have to use them in a way that's natural in the story, and they're a sort of a role-playing reward, if you like. So virtues should ideally be something you can act on. For example, handsome's not a very good virtue because it's passive, whereas helpful is a much better virtue because it's something that is a behavior. And vices, similarly, it can be anything from it could be an opium addiction if you want to go something quite classic, or it could be something as simple as, or rather, I say simple, but as difficult to conceptualize as ambition. You know, how does that play into your character? So, anyone got any ideas? of virtues or vices that you could use. I'll come to you, Steve and Sam first, and then we'll circle back to Aaron and Liz and see if they finish their 3 words.
So the two.
So I do have my. Sorry.
There you go.
Plus, I do actually have my 3 words.
Oh, brilliant! Let's hear it.
So the first one I had locked down was desperate.
Yeah.
It's next one creative. The other one links onto its a bit of experience. So it's experience in doing what he has done, which is all the creativity of being desperate. So they're all linked together.
Fantastic.
Hopefully they work also to virtue and vice quite nicely.
Yeah, you might find that quite natural to build onto. And Liz, have you got your final word, or are you still need a moment?
Didn't take a moment.
All right, that's fine. So, Sam, what are you thinking for virtue and vice? Got any ideas?
Well, having joined an establishment and publication such as this, I would say that Sir Reginald Grey is in fact a rather open-minded chap. Unfortunately, he's also, well, being slightly, fashionable and mildly egocentric, is a bit flaky. He's an unreliable person. So there you go, open-minded and unreliable. And apparently rambling. But that's just me. That's actually me.
I can't wait for you to be unreliable in this campaign. That's a great vice that should be very easy to integrate.
Oh yes, it's going to be loved. I'm going to love that ability.
Steve, have you got an idea in mind?
Yeah, so I have wrote down 2. Although I'm going to change the first one because I've realised it's actually the 2 sides of the same coin. I'd gone for determined and stubborn. But I think I'm actually going to change determined to being a grafter. So he's hard working, but he's stubborn, and once he's set on a course, getting him to change his views could be problematic, which is going to go really well with a flaky person.
Right. Those are also going to be nice, and especially that your vice is going to be really nice to integrate that. So that works very well. Aaron, how about yourself?
I'm literally just going to go on to the 3 words I came up with. So virtue being more creative on, and the vice being desperate. There's that desperation of gaping what they've been brought up into. The creativity is more, I suppose it almost falls into the open-mindedness, but like a creative problem solver, if you would, more than anything.
Creativity, I think, is a decent enough virtue. I think that works well. Desperate as a vice might be quite tricky, because desperate's quite situational. I was wondering if there's something we can do to make that more of a choice that you make rather than something you're forced into.
Okay.
Not that I think it's a great concept, but I think maybe something to build off of.
Give me a minute and I will.
Yeah. Liz, how about yourself?
I put as a vice that she is hot-headed.
Yeah, that works.
I needed the sword, so I just cannot think. Well,
Walk around it, my dear. Some of us have had an education.
I'd say, if I may, that a good virtue if you might be courageous, because your character's made a big decision for a young woman of wealth to move away from her home. You don't have to stick with that, but I think it might work well.
Yep.
Okay. So, hopefully everyone's got everything they need pretty much from the top section of your character sheets. If you like, Aaron, stick in desperate and we can workshop that later if we need it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to attributes. So you've all done this before, but for anyone who doesn't know, for Chronicles of Darkness, there's kind of 3 groups of attributes: the mental, the physical, and the social. And you need to decide what your strongest area is, what your second strongest area is, and what your weakest area is. So if you could decide, I like to do this by popping a number above the sort of the appropriate column, like 1, 2, or 3. And as you might remember, your strongest attribute, you get 5 dots to distribute. Your second strongest, you get 4 dots to distribute into your attributes. And your weakest, you only get 3. Please let me know if you want to go above 3 dots in something, because that usually means that you're sort of a world-class expert. If you've got 5, you're a world-class expert. If you've got 4, you're sort of PhD level. So you're very, very good at something. And then proportionally below that is slightly more accessible to the standard individuals. Not to say you can't have 4 or 5 dots, but I'd just like to know if you're doing that. Okay, and just while you're doing that, I'll just explain a little bit about attributes in Chronicles of Darkness for anyone who doesn't know. There are 9 attributes. The mental ones are intelligence, wits, and resolve. Intelligence would be things like book learning, knowledge. Wits would be your quick thinking, problem solving in the moment. And resolve would be your mental fortitude. The physical skills, strength, kind of what it says on the tin. Dexterity, again, kind of what it says on the tin. Flexibility, manual skill. And stamina, your ability to just keep on going throughout physical hardship. And finally, the social ones. Presence, that can be an imposing presence, a welcoming presence, and it impacts people's immediate impression of you. Manipulation, so how good are you at impacting other people's behavior. And composure, so how good are you at staying calm under pressure. And these kind of make the foundation of most things that you'll be doing in the game. You might also use an attribute and a skill, and we'll come to skills in a minute. So now that I've given that little spiel, I hope everybody's had a bit of a think about what their top 3 will be. I actually don't need to know how you've distributed them, but has anyone chosen to go to 4 or 5 dots in something, and do you have a reason?
Not on the top level.
No.
All right.
Sorry, can I ask a really probably dumb question? But is it working in columns? So it's like intelligence, wits, resolve, and not along. And down in columns. Okay. Because I was reading across, and I was like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Correct. Thank you.
No problem. Right then. Well, if people are still working on that, I'll just do a little bit of additional explanation. Most roles that you do in Chronicles of Darkness will involve an attribute and a skill, and the skills are grouped into mental, physical, and social. And we will distribute points among them. The way the points thing works is this is a D10 system. So if you have a point, that equates to 1d10. If you have 2 points, that's 2d10s, 3 points, 3d10s, etc., etc. Most of the time, 1 success on 1d10 will allow you to succeed with a task. And a success is usually an 8, a 9, or a 10. Of course, there are different things that impact that. Sometimes I will require more than 1 success. Sometimes I will impose conditions that reduce your number of successes because conditions are difficult, things like that. But that's fundamentally how it works. So a bit different from a D20 system. Okay. Does anyone... I still see some pens and pencils moving. Steve, how are you doing? Have you all assigned yours?
I have, yep, all done. I've behaved myself this time. I haven't got above 3.
You're allowed. You just need to tell me. Fantastic. What have you picked as your strongest stat group?
I have gone for intelligence, but then this time I've gone for strength, and then presence is the final category. So a bit of the inverse of last time.
Fantastic. Sam, what have you gone for?
I have fallen to, I believe, the same as I actually did with this last time. So intelligence, then social, then physical. With physical being the weakest. Or mental,
Aaron,
social, physical.
Yeah. Aaron, even if you're not quite finished doing your dots, could you tell me what your strongest category is? Is it mental, social, physical?
So mine's actually going for physical. I'm going mental, then social, but I will go on the social thing because it's lower social class. Its social standing may not be as high.
Very interesting. And Liz, could you tell me which one's your top group out of mental, social, and physical, or how you've ranked them?
Mental, social, and physical is my weakest.
Okay. I think it's very interesting that I don't think a single person's picked social as their strongest, which is great for a group of journalists. You're going to have to be very ingenuitive about how you get your leads and stories, but that's good. That's going to test you a little bit, I think.
Oh, my social is wildly unbalanced. This character has 1 composure. Just to really set this up.
I do have 3 in composure.
Just a brief reminder, and for anyone at home, if there's anyone alive out there, solve, stamina, and composure, usually your resistance skills. So when it comes to putting up with terrible things happening, coping with the horrors that you will witness, or the physical strain we put under, resolve, stamina, and composure are your friends. They're not active usually, but they're very good for resistance. Okay, I think if people are still in the moment, that's fine. I'm going to move on to skills now. Just remember that when I said 5, 4, and 3, that's on top of the 1 dot that's already coloured in on your sheet. I forgot to remind you of that, but I think you all remember anyway. Okay, let's go on to skills. So you can have 11 dots in your strongest category. So if mental is your strongest category, you can have 11 dots. Your second strongest category, you get 7 dots, and your weakest category gets 4 dots, which is not a lot.
No.
Again, if you want to have 4 or 5 dots in something, that's perfectly fine. Please tell me. Otherwise, put them however you want. And just for those of you who are curious, we are not using the standard Chronicles of Darkness character sheet this time. We are using an adapted one, sort of a Victorian era one that I have further adapted because we've added 2 categories. Under mental skills, I'll read out the mental skills and I'll explain the additions. We've got academics, domesticity, crafts, investigation, medicine, occult, politics, and science. All of them could come in handy because this is going to be a campaign that involves lots of different skills, lots of different conversations and methods of investigation. Normally, you would have computers, which is obviously not very relevant in 1911, so we've changed that for the domestic sphere, because running a household in 1911, you actually had to have quite a lot of knowledge. I, for example, in the modern day, have no idea how to light a range. Never done it, don't know how. Maybe I could figure it out if left my devices long enough. But it just represents that there's all sorts of knowledge that's a little bit lost nowadays that if you had domestic experience, you would have had, and to pay tribute to that. Under physical skills, we've got athletics, brawl, firearms, larceny, stealth, survival, weaponry, and machines. Normally you'd have drive, but again, cars, not very common in 1911. So to reflect that, machines is a nice broad category. It could include trains, it could include trams, it could include various kinds of boilers and steam engines and industrial equipment. So if anyone's had any experience working with industrial equipment, maybe based on your description, Aaron, you are the most likely, I think. Mm-hmm. That might be a good one to put some points in. And the social skills. Sorry, go on.
What does subterfuge mean?
Subterfuge. If you're trying to do something subtly, trying to hide something. So if you're trying to lie to somebody, or if you're trying to slip something into a pocket, perhaps. If you're trying to conceal some truth, that would be subterfuge.
And is it the same? Sorry, is it the same for the skills? You know, like if you have more than 3, you're like renowned in it, or is that just for attributes?
No, it's the same. So if you have more than 3 dots in a skill, if you have 4, that means you are probably one of the best in the country, maybe. And if you have 5, you are one of the best in the world. You are the Einstein of science. You are the Usain Bolt of athletics. So just you're totally allowed. Please just tell me if you're going to do that, though.
You're the completely unknown of stealth.
Yeah. Very nice.
Okay, on reflection, when I realise it's like 7 and 4 skills, I have switched out, so I am now actually going to be intelligence. Start again. Mental, social, and then physical. Because you're right, we should have some points in social if we want to be investigators.
It's really up to you how you do it. I think quite a few people have taken that as their secondary stat. Has anyone taken physical as their top stat? I can't remember.
Just
Not that
myself.
Okay. All right. Well, so long as there's someone who's physical, because while you could probably get away with having no one with top mental or top social, no one with top physical, you're going to come across some quite obvious problems at a certain point. Just, to not give any hints.
But none of us can open the door.
Yes, quite.
We all know how the door was built and how it worked, but I have to open it.
I understand the principle of hinge.
Did anyone have any other questions about skills, how they work? Oh, well, there's something I've just remembered, but does anyone have any questions before I get into the next thing? Okay. So you get to choose as well 3 specialties. I would put these probably with your best skills. They will give you a bit of a bonus whenever you're using that skill. And if you can apply the specialty. So an example might be, let's take machines. If you have driven a locomotive in the past, maybe you could have machines, and a specialty would be locomotives. Or maybe if you took, let's say, athletics, and you, for whatever reason, were a marathon runner, you might put marathon as your specialty. Or medicine, and maybe quite for reasons we won't scrutinise, quite a lot about chloroform. Maybe that could be your specialty. Sedation. So when you get a chance, once you've attributed your dots, you can add your specialties. Any 3. Any questions about that? Let me know. So, as I can see, some of my dear colleagues are still jotting that down. I might continue my monologue about the Chronicles of Darkness system. So, there's quite a few other attributes, although it's a relatively straightforward and streamlined character sheet for Chronicles of Darkness. Once we've done this, we'll move on to merits, which are sort of like special skills. I need to be careful with that word because skills is a thing on the sheet. It's benefits that you might have. We'll go through those in detail. You have a certain amount of dots that you can spend on your merits, so we'll come to that in time. Health, which we will cover in depth in due course, I'm sure. Health is very difficult to recover in Chronicles of Darkness, to reflect the fact that regular humans, when they take damage, it takes them a long time to heal. And if you take catastrophic damage, you're very unlikely to be part of the action ever again. Now, let's see. Willpower. Willpower is a very useful resource, the most useful resource in some ways. It allows you to add additional dice to your pool to represent, I'm really trying this is important to me. It's slow to replenish, so it's very useful, especially in combat, because combat doesn't come up as it's not a necessity in Chronicles of Darkness. There's a lot of ways to avoid combat, but when it does come up, it is grueling and brutal. So sometimes it's useful to have some willpower to boost those numbers. But we'll come to combat in due course when we actually play the game. All right. And then there's various other little things like speed, size, defense, etc. that will be filled in once we've done all the other sections. Right. So, how are we doing? Just give me a sense of whether we need a little bit more time or whether we are quite happy with where we're at.
I'm done. It's just the 3 specialties that I'm mulling over.
I am chewing my way through my final specialty.
Lovely.
Those are my 3 specialties, just not the subcategory under machines, because that's obviously going to be one. Yeah.
Liz, how are you doing?
I have 2 specialties.
Fantastic.
Does it have to be like one of our strongest skills?
Absolutely not. I just recommend it because then it makes you extra good at that. But if you want to have a specialty that's maybe not a strong skill, but something that you've done in the past for role-playing purposes, I encourage that. So yeah, you do what you want. Maybe I could ask Sam, you said you were kind of mulling your options over. Maybe you could talk us through what you've picked and let us know.
Well, the character himself is a bit of a, well, political anorak, to use the modern verbatim. And so, therefore, I have decided that obviously he is decently skilled, not perhaps the national expert on politics. That's probably something left to an assistant to the Prime Minister, quite frankly. But I would say that he has a good understanding of the democracy in which he exists. Secondly, given I've given him some competence at persuasion, I thought I would give him a bit of a skill with fast talking. The ability to talk someone out the door before they realise the conversation started seemed quite useful. But the other skill that I've left highest, along with politics, is investigation. I'm struggling to come up with a concept for investigation that feels right for the character. I'm cheating now. I'm looking at suggestion lists as I sit here talking, hoping that I can pad time out until I come up with something.
Perfectly fine. Do you think could this link in some way to what your role as a journalist? Because investigation should link to journalism quite neatly. So is there a bridge there?
Yes, I would say, well, even library skills are quite necessary for journalism. Oh, journalism is literally listed as I sit here staring at a suggestion list within the whole general World of Darkness canon. So there we go. Literally journalism. This journalist is specialised in journalism.
Wow, well, how
Shockingly.
convenient is that?
Did you know this floor is made of floor?
Right. Liz, you sounded like you were pretty close to being done with yours. Could you tell us what you've chosen for your specialties?
Well, I picked crafts and domesticity for the first two.
Yeah.
But I guess then I need to obviously specialize that down, right?
Yeah, so it could be, for domesticity, it might be that you're particularly good at dinner parties or something, like preparation for dinner parties or something, or you are extremely adept at embroidery, something like that. I mean, maybe that's more craft. But yeah, that needs a little more refining then, I think. What was the other thing you were thinking about?
So I've picked crafts, and I'm like desperately trying to think of something that will be useful.
You'd be surprised what could be useful.
And then I'm stuck between either going with survival, which is one of my highest skills, or going with something like expression. Like, what is expression? Just she can express herself.
Expression, that's a really good question, actually. So expression is, it's about how you express yourself, but it doesn't have to just be in words. It could be in sort of through art. So the way to think about it is craft is how good you are at making something of quality, but expression would be how well you can express yourself through that craft, if you see what I mean. So art might be sculpture might be something you could do for expression, whereas craft might be more like carpentry. So if you wanted to be particularly good at take embroidery again, for example, and your work is really sensitive and delicate and really reflects some particular aspect of your identity, or really communicates well with others, that might be more under expression than under craft. I'll leave you to mull it for a little bit longer. Steve, where are you up to with yours?
Yeah, I'm just mulling them over. So, because I've also got investigation, which I was going to do journalism, but then we already have the Lord has journalism, so I'm thinking maybe there should be something else. But then I'm struggling to think of something else at the minute, so I'm going to run back on that one. I've got academics. I'm thinking libraries. So he's someone who spent a lot of time studying in libraries, kind of knows how to find information and books. So that's kind of the way I see him doing his investigation work. He's not so much talking to people, it's the kind of like pulling up the property deeds, looking up the records, going through all the kind of any written records that he can find, which also makes up for his lack of actual talking skills.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Then for my third one, I'm thinking that should be something tied to what he studied, and that's the bit I'm just trying to put a pin in.
Fantastic. So if we get a bit stuck for specialties, you might either think about things that your character might have done in a previous job, things again they might have studied at school. For example, obviously we don't study Latin so much in school now, but it would have been much more prevalent back then, especially grammar school. You can think about things that would have been, as journalists, you might have already covered. You've looked a little, I know all of you just before this were talking about things that have happened in 1911. Well, because you would have probably been doing stories on those things, they could be part of your skill set.
To be honest, it's more where it fits into the skills. So what I'm kind of thinking is, let's say, he obviously came from a working class family. Families would have worked in at the metal shops, working with the kind of steel and so forth. He went to college, technically as it was, which actually in that time would have been the Birmingham Municipal Technical School. So he's got ranked in. I've given him ranked in science, and I'm kind of thinking engineering. And I'm just trying to figure, would that be engineering or would that be more machines?
Well, remember, machines I put under physical. So it might be that you know about machines, but you're not great at operating machines.
Yeah.
They are slightly different. So you can put engineering as a knowledge.
Yeah, so engineering as a science then under knowledge. That works.
That's how I do it. Fab. Aaron, how are you getting on?
So I've chosen a bit of an idea. So machines are going to be more factory machinery. I've got the streetwise. I'm looking more of where to sell or get hold of stolen stuff.
Fencing.
Fencing, that's the word, thank you. Showing my social class here right now. And the other one I was hoping to go with is stealth. How I can word stealth into it, I'm not too quite sure. But stealth's the last one I have.
Okay. How do you use stealth in your day-to-day life?
I don't know if it falls under a different skill, but more the ability to tell if I'm being watched. It's the ability to pick on other people looking at me, rather than the ability to hold things. It almost falls on subterfuge with distractions, but it's not. It might be easier to choose that though. Actually, I'll say that.
Whatever fits you best.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's probably a good point to move on to merits, unless anyone's got any questions or anything else that they want to discuss.
I'm just going to say, Bardic actually raised a really good point, and I even mentioned it when I was doing my description. So, investigation research. That's literally what I said is the thing that he does best, and I didn't think about it as an actual specialty because my brain wasn't working. Thank you, Bardic.
Spot on. Thank you, chat, for helping us out with that. All right. Anyone else want to pitch something to the chat if you're really stuck on a specialty, or are we pretty much good? We can always come back to this, as we're not playing this game for a few more weeks yet. So if you need a little bit more time to refine, if you change your mind about any of these skills, you can change it. This is not set in stone just yet. Okay, right. Now this is the bit that's going to, I think, take the most time, and that's merits. So let's get the merits out. There are lots of merits. There are physical, social, and mental merits, and there are also supernatural merits. Now, the supernatural merits are not off the table, but unlike the last time we played Chronicles of Darkness, you can, if you wish, have had brushes with the supernatural, but it is rare and extremely unusual, and the sort of thing people don't shout about in case you get locked up. So, you can take those, but you gotta tell me about it, and it might impact certain things about your character. Now then, You have got a certain number of dots. You've got 7 merit dots. You can distribute them however you want. Certain merits are more expensive than others, as you will remember. Those of you who are from an affluent background, it might be that you want to use some of those to reflect your access to resources or maybe your contacts that you have. But what's best here is probably if you give me some sense as to things you think you would have access to or be good at, and then I can, or even things that you would quite like to be good at, and I can give you some suggestions. There are also combat merits as well. You will be able to find most of these. I
was not kidding when this might take a while. I am staring at a list that is longer than the screens on my desk are wide. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. So let's just have a bit of a think. See what you think you'd be good at, and then we'll see what we can narrow down. Sam, since you're looking at a list, I'll leave you be for now. Has anyone not got access to the books? I'll start with you in that case.
Well, there's at least if you wanted just the title of them, there is a drop-down list if you click the fields on the sheets for those of you working digitally. Although I think that's just me and Steve.
Yeah, if we have access to it. Oh, I just hadn't opened it up because I'm a muppet.
That's all right. That's allowed. Right. But I'll tell you what. Liz, shall we see if we can nail down some of your merits, and then we'll come back around to other people, and we'll just sort of take in turns. We'll get everything pulled out.
Okay.
Yep. Right. What do you think your character would be good at? What do you think her strengths would be? What do you think? Any ideas? I can, or if you find it helpful, I can read you the names of some merits.
I mean, how do you not? Do you retread kind of what we've already? Oh, there's like specific things.
Yeah, there's like, for example, mental merits. You might have common sense, which gives you particular access to essentially ask me questions about what's going on as the storyteller. You could have languages that you add to your sheet. You could have access to a library. Physical merits, you might be particularly large in stature, or you might have really good stamina. There's so many different things we could do, and there's a lot of things we could adapt if they don't quite fit.
How many are we on again?
7 dots. So as many merits as you like, but you've only got 7 dots to spend.
Oh, yeah.
And just be careful, because a couple of the merits require you to have purchased the first dot option before you can buy the second dot option, which means if you want to go all the way to the second dot option, you actually have to spend 3 dots. They are the ones that have, they've got a special tag next to them, which I will let you know in a moment. But they're usually things like the martial arts one. Right. Well, if we're all thinking and looking, then I might as well monologue for a little bit about what merits are and how they work. So, you get a pool of dots to spend amongst your merits. These are fixed. You can never lose them. So it might be that you take a merit. For example, let's take the merit Eye for the Strange, which is quite a popular one. Eye for the Strange allows your character to have an advantage to spotting something that's out of the usual, something occult. Now, it might be that at a certain point, your character might no longer find that to be appropriate. For example, and this is quite an extreme example, it might be that your character gets the condition blinded at a certain point and can no longer see. Well, that merit doesn't really work for them anymore. But that doesn't mean they lose those dots. They get to spread them out somewhere else. So those dots are fixed and finite and definite. there's many different options as discussed across the skills. So really, and because I'm quite a kind and benevolent god in this world, I'll allow people to do pretty much whatever. We can edit, we can finagle things a little bit, so long as things aren't too broken. I'm quite relaxed. So if there's something you want to be able to do that doesn't fit the merit list, we'll just find the nearest thing and adapt it until it does. So that's what I mean when I say if there's something that you want your character to be able to do and you're not seeing it, tell me, because we'll see if we can figure it out. I might talk a little bit about some of the supernatural merits, because supernatural merits are fun. Because Chronicles of Darkness is part of a much larger world, which is kind of more well known, like Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse and all those sorts of books. Can't never remember if they're the contemporary ones or the ones that are out of date, but part of that sphere. And in all those other books, there's creatures tend to be quite powerful. They've got innate powers of one kind or another, and humans, bless them, are quite boring in comparison. But you can have a few supernatural merits to kind of even the odds a little bit, if you wish. So some of the supernatural merits might be things like reading auras. You could be a medium if you want to commune with ghosts. You could have a numbing touch, which could be quite a useful thing to use against other humans. You could have telekinesis if you want to really stray into the quite overt realms of superpowers, or telepathy even. There's different levels of that. There's the wonderful skill Thief of Fate, where you can steal luck from people, or rather, you can steal their fortune, which is quite a nice skill, but quite, again, we're straying into superpowers with that one. I do quite like the supernatural merits. I don't think I've ever had anyone who picked one, any of the campaigns I've run so far, because it tends to be that we have campaigns that are quite grounded. But that's not to say that they're out of bounds. Right. So, looks like we're still in the midst of merit picking. So I might go through a few other things that my colleagues know, but might be useful for anyone watching to find out a little bit more about the Chronicles of Darkness system. Let's talk conditions. I love conditions. Conditions are fun because I can impose them on you when you do things wrong or when you make a mistake. Now, what they usually... conditions, really, they're more of a role-playing thing than anything else. They describe something about your character when you might have seen something you shouldn't have seen, when you might have done something you shouldn't have done. And it might be that you are feeling guilty, or it might be that you're feeling spooked or shaken. Those are some of the quite tame ones. For each one of those, there is a penalty to your character to get rid of the condition. So, for example, for shaken, indicates something has frightened your character extensively. Anytime your character is taking an action where that fear might hinder her, you may opt to fail the roll and shed the condition. I very much encourage people to resolve the conditions because they make for really good character moments. I tend to take the role. This isn't a rule strictly speaking in Chronicles of Darkness, but I like to take the rule that if you have a condition once, you can't have it again. And I think I've given you the 3 common minor conditions, and you have all 3, and you've not resolved them. I'm not going to give you any more minor ones. You're getting a serious one. For example, madness, soulless, or lost, fugue. It's a pretty good one. I look forward to imposing some of these conditions on our players, for sure. Some of them, especially like for madness, which I fully intend to inflict on someone at some point, it can give me temporarily control of their. Oh no, sorry, that's few. Few gives me kind of temporary control of their character, which I absolutely love. It's quite similar to Call of Cthulhu in that way, where if you go too crazy, you become mine for a brief while. Fantastic. Now, leaving conditions alone for a minute. Has anyone got any questions about merits, or has anyone made any decision?
I'm going to make your day and be a player that's taken an occult one for you.
Which one have you picked?
Ah, clairvoyance.
Pick
More
clever.
than once has Reginald found himself sighing, resting in the back of a cab as he leaves an interview, and finding he still finds his thoughts in the place. He found it a bit odd. Fortunately, it was quite useful that he'd already spent time engaging in the fashion of engaging the supernatural, and discovered this is a usable talent, especially in a line of work where people will lie to you and then tell the truth the moment the door's shut. Add to that an eidetic memory, and he's already doing quite well for himself as a young, budding journalist. He's cheating, basically.
Fantastic. I like the fact that that fits in, because you already said you were taking occult as a specialty. So it might perhaps link to some occult explorations in your youth, which I quite liked.
Yep.
Fantastic. Let me see. Steve, yeah?
I have chosen mine. So I am indomitable. I can never say that word. Indomitable. That goes in with the fact that I was saying earlier about me being stubborn. So it's not actually a supernatural power, but it's a natural defense against it, which gives me a +2 when contesting dice pool against supernatural mental influences. So basically, he's just so set in his ways, the supernatural find it hard to try to control his mind. He's an investigative prodigy, which, when you roll to uncover clues, you uncover a clue per success, capped by your number of dots in this prodigy, which is 3 dots. So he is quite good as an investigator. He's also a trained observer, so he's very good at just seeing what is happening around him and watching for clues. And then finally, Iron Skin, which just gives him he can take a punch without it hurting him quite so much. It comes from his youth and his hard life before he started to do better for himself.
Very useful. I'm just checking up on that indomitable skill just to see what exactly it covers, because
so
yep.
This is from the second edition rules. Whether this is still the same thing, it just said, +2 to contesting dice pool of resistance that trade applied against supernatural mental influences. That's all it says.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. To influence thoughts or emotions. Good. I might at times widen that slightly. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking about how that might factor into
intriguing.
What you should discuss. We'll see. All right. Aaron, how are you going? You picked a couple? Have you picked
I
one?
have chosen, yes.
Good.
So I've gone for parkour, fast reflexes, contacts, and the fighting I went for cheap shot, iron stamina. So if he does get caught doing something, he's getting out of there.
Nice.
Brilliant. Could you tell me about your contact?
So with contacts, I haven't got further into that. So for more contacts, I was more going for the streetwise. So maybe I might know a Vents or someone in the lake where you might know a little bit more going on, which isn't more widely known, if that makes sense. So maybe it's a local pub landlord or something like that, or might know a little bit of gossip going on.
Lee, okay. There might be a specific character that might be useful for you.
Yeah.
So remind me of that one.
Yeah, I will show you.
Because there might be someone already in the game that would fit quite well with.
Oh gosh, if we need to announce these merits more specifically, I have to admit I've also taken a point in contacts, although I expected somewhat more refined company to enjoy with that in the area.
Do you have an idea for who? I mean, I assume it's one. Did you get one dot in contact?
Yes. I assumed I would be at least familiar with the local MP's office, able to know how to talk my way to an actual appointment, as it were. Or know them well enough to know who to talk to about getting one. If that makes sense.
If you've got one contact, it might be useful for you to define exactly who that is.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough. I was trying to keep it loose for you.
I know, but and I appreciate that. But I would prefer it if you decided who it was.
Okay. Let's go full kilter with this. He knows the local MP personally for where this will be set.
Fantastic. So could you make your contact Mrs. Edwina Herbert?
Indeed I can. I'm going to have to note that somewhere else on here. There we go.
Yes, I should note that you will notice as part of the aforementioned choices surrounding prejudice that there are quite a lot of women in positions of power that would not realistically be in those positions of power, but we're not going to address that too heavily because it doesn't pay to think too heavily about these things if we want to enjoy ourselves. Now,
Yes.
It's a poor medium for the sensitivities involved in this sort of thing. It's far better to deal with these things as a script where you can actually handle the sensitivity well ahead of time rather than the improvised format. So yeah, we'll skip all that, and that will go for any future stream because again, terrible medium, not to be done.
lovely. Liz, have you had a bit of a think about your merits? Have you decided what you're having?
Yeah, so I really like sympathetic and peacemaker, but I don't know if they're like too similar. Well, they do very different things, but do you know what I mean?
Let's have a look. Empathetic and peacemaker. I'm assuming they're social.
Yes.
Oh, sympathetic. Oh, yeah. So, sorry. Empathetic. It's been a long day.
Sorry, I may have said that.
Okay. All right. So, for sympathetic, yes, it will be useful. I don't typically use the doors system when we're doing social maneuvering because I prefer you to role play it rather than say, oh, you have to get so many successes with this bird. Not unless it's something really difficult that you're trying to do. But if you want to take that, I can figure out, we'll be able to make that work within a role-playing sense. So that's absolutely fine. And what was the other one you were talking about? Sympathetic and peacemaker.
Peacemaker. I like that you can make peace with the supernatural. Instead of hitting it, I would calm again. There.
Peacemaker.
Right.
That
Okay,
might.
tentacled horror. Why don't we hug it out?
Is that specifically for supernatural then?
No, it's in social.
Ooh, let's see.
Right, well, I'll have to look that one up because it does not seem to be in the core book. It might be from one of the supplements.
Oh yeah, I'm looking on. Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be great.
You can spend willpower to attempt to negotiate a non-violent end to hostiles through social maneuvering. With 3 dots, you can attempt to talk down even supernatural rages.
And you've gone for three dots.
I have not put any dots into any of them yet. So
Okay.
if I were to pick that, 3 dots would probably be useful, eh?
Yeah, so however you spread out your 7, it's up to you. You don't have to take 3, but I'd like to know if you are taking 3 because that is very interesting.
Oh, it seems to have worried you, so I will take 3.
I am not worried. It just might come into play, maybe, or it might not. We'll see.
Okay, well, I'll definitely pick that one then.
All right. So has everyone spent their 7 merit? I know, Liz, you said you haven't done your dots yet. Has everyone else spent their 7 merit dots?
Yep.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Right. Well, Liz, while you sort your dots, let's just do the easy bits. So, everyone's size is 5. So please write 5 next to your size because you're all normal humans, unless you took giant or one of the other merits that make you bigger than 5. So, yep, so once you've got that down, you can add your health dots, which will be your stamina plus your size. So 6 will be the minimum. Some of you will hopefully have more than 6. We shall see. So if you just colour in the appropriate number of dots on the health panel based on your stamina and your size. Okay. Willpower. Resolve plus composure. So if you could colour in, again, the appropriate number of dots for willpower. The minimum willpower is 2. 3. Wow, that's spicy, Sam. You'll have to nurse those. If other people got more than 3.
What a choice to take an ability that requires me to drain it to use it.
Ooh, 5 is much healthier, Aaron. Yeah, that's looking better.
I've learned. For now.
Handy to have. Good to have. All right, lovely. Your defense will be your lowest out of your dexterity or your wit. So again, minimum of 1. Hopefully more than 1, but who knows? Depends how many dots you put in dexterity and wit.
The lowest one out of the 2, yes.
Oh, sorry, plus athletics. My bad, I missed that bit. So either dex or wits, whichever one is lower, plus athletics. So the minimum is still 2. But you might have substantially more than that.
So it's wits. So it'd be wits or dexterity plus your athletics.
Wits or dex, whichever is lower, plus athletics. Okay?
Yeah.
Your initiative modifier is your dexterity plus your composure. Again, minimum of 2. And
I'm going to die, folks.
I assume that armor is 0 unless you've got something that gives you.
yes, and you're going to have to give me a really good reason why you're wearing armor because
I've got iron skin.
So we're visiting Birmingham.
No, literally, I have iron skin. I have the merit. It's just it's tougher.
Well, that's nice for you.
Tougher than the average bear.
Oh, that's good. And your speed will be your strength plus your dex plus 5. So again, 7 will be your minimum. So strength plus dex plus 5.
Lovely typo there, accidentally giving myself a 98.
This character is extremely different from the last one I played in this game. This is going to be interesting.
I am speed.
Pardon?
What did you say, Aaron? Sorry?
I am speed.
You are speed. Excellent.
Yeah.
You could be the survivor this time, unlike last time.
Like every time.
Every time since you've been a survivor, I think.
I forgot.
No, there was a. So this was before we went to streaming our sessions, folks. There was a period where we were playing a few one shots of this, and AJ and I, after I sort of ran away during a couple of these, simply being the sensible survival-focused chap that I am, playing Chronicles of Darkness or Call of Cthulhu, AJ and I sort of got into a mild competition where we were both basically trying to kill each other just for us to escape. He would try and kill me so that he could get out of here, and vice versa. It was brilliant. Our last session, I think he actively threw me to a monster to try and drive off. I shot the car, basically dooming us both to die out in the woods, being chased by something horrible. That was it. He was going down with me, folks.
I didn't actively try to kill you. I just wasn't attempting to help you.
Good times. Good times.
Yep.
Right.
You can tell we're friends, clearly.
You don't get that kind of animosity with enemies. So, starting integrity, guys, is 7 for everybody. Remembering, and integrity is what you will gradually lose over time. depending on how many breaking points you take and fail. And breaking points come when you encounter something horrific or when you do something morally questionable. So yes, I'll have to try much harder in this campaign to erode that. Okay, I think that's all the essential stuff. There's just one last... No, a couple of... Actually, completely lying. There's quite a few things we need to do that I didn't think we'd get time to do. So we've been really efficient. So thank you, everybody. Now, aspirations. I really like these. And ideally, you should have maybe 3 max. And you should have one that's very easy to achieve. Something quite simple. Things like having a really excellent pint, or having a good night's rest. Something simple and achievable. And then something that's a little bit more long term. And then ideally something that's like a life goal. And the idea here is that if you succeed at an aspiration, you'll get a beat. And beats are the equivalent of experience in this game. The more beats you get, and there's lots of things I can give you beats for. I can be a bit stingy with them. I need to be a bit more generous in future. Remember that there's lots of different things that you get beats for. This is one of them. So try and set yourself at least one thing that you can cross off. The medium term one, maybe it'll come up. It really depends on where the story goes and what you guys choose to do. And the long term one, maybe you'll do it, maybe you won't. If anyone's got any ideas or questions about any of that, well, let me know. It's hugely open. While people are coming up with ideas, I might as well talk a little bit more about beats and the ways that I can give them out, but I always forget. So, you can get beats for some of the following. You can get beats for just completing a chapter in the story. You can get a beat for an exceptional success. You can get a beat when you resolve a condition. You can get a beat when you have let me get this right. When you resolve a condition and then there's a little discrepancy in the rule where in some versions of this you have to do something additional as well as resolving a condition to get a beat. But I think we'll just do resolving a condition gets you a beat. And sometimes really succeeding at a breaking point roll will get you a beat as well, instead of destroying your sanity gradually over time. So it's possible to have good outcomes from that. But yes, the way it tends to work is once you've got enough beats, you can swap them for additional merit points. If you get enough of them, you can get more skill points or even attribute points. You can get an additional specialty. So they are very useful. And they're quite versatile in the way you can use them. So, obviously at this point, the plan is for us to do about roughly 8 sessions of this campaign. So you should have at least 8 beats by the end of it, minimum. So I need to make sure that I'm a lot more on the ball with making sure I give them out to my players so that they can cash them in for the delicious treats that they deserve. Lovely. Have we got any ideas for aspirations, fabulous people?
Yes.
Oh, Steve, what do you think?
So the first one is to go off nice and simple, which is just to find a really good pie. He likes a good steak and ale pie, and it has to be a good one. He's very particular on what he wants it to be. So that's his simple one. Next one is a little bit more complex, which is just he wants to discover a major lead, something that looks like it potentially could be his breakout story. And then the final one, which is probably more towards the end of it, obviously, which is A, to survive, but is actually he wants to make the headlines. He wants to be his story to be on the front page.
Fantastic. Okay, so to get a lead on a scoop and then to actually deliver it.
Yeah,
that's a really good set of aspirations, I think.
Oh no, I wrote the same one, basically.
Did you?
You can't steal my pie idea. My pie is mine.
There's no rule that says you have to have different aspirations. What have you got at the moment, Sam?
Currently, I've actually stolen your first suggestion because that actually sounded quite nice. To enjoy a thoroughly good drink, and yeah, to discover a front page scoop. I'm trying to think of one related to the clairvoyance itself. Yeah, just to play on it a bit. But I am struggling to come up with an aspiration that plays into it, if I'm honest.
Can I just ask, how do the character feel about this clairvoyance, and how far are they aware of it?
So to them, it is they're aware it's a concept. Occultism is a bit of a hobby. I say it's a bit of a hobby. I mean, at 2 pips, it's something they've actually dedicated, a shelf to. But at the same time, it's something they're certainly willing to leverage as an advantage in their career, given that it has allowed them to hear conversations that they have validated definitely happened when they weren't in the room, if I've understood the clairvoyance description correctly anyway. So he's not shy about it, to be honest. He just would rather it wasn't something so horribly, horribly draining. Given every time he does it, he finds himself needing to recover for a while.
How much willpower does it drain?
I believe each use requires some. So let's see. Your character can project senses to another location. She sees, hears, smells, and otherwise experiences the place as if they were there. This requires a point of willpower to activate. Successful meditation and a wits plus occult roll. So it always burns 1.
Right. Okay. It's just 3 dots. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I had a suggestion, but it doesn't make sense. It's only 3 dots. Does your do you think this is a skill that your character would wish to enhance or increase, or perhaps?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's already gotten a couple of stories that have allowed him to start a career at a national paper. So he's more than willing to make it better.
So that could perhaps be an aspiration to improve your sort of psychic skills, as it were.
I was literally writing improved psychic powers as we got through that conversation. Thank you.
No problem. Right, Aaron, where are you at?
So, I'd like to take my reg out first. To have a hearty meal, something that actually makes him feel full, not just rubbish food, actually something fulfilling. So rich food. Another one, to recover something infamous which has been missing. So not only have the scoop on it, but to actually physically have it in my possession to say, I have done this, not just I've wrote it, not in. What that could be, who knows?
What do you mean by like something like a stolen jewel?
Something stolen which is well known, what everyone's been trying to investigate or find, and for me to get it. That my experience of sneaking through and grabbing things actually has proven financially worthy in an honest way.
All right. So you want like a tangible outcome of your...
Yeah. So something physical in my hands from what I've come out of it.
Lovely. Maybe you'll be able to achieve that. I'm not sure, but I think it's a nice one, a really nice one. Have you got an idea for final aspiration?
Not at the moment. That's what I'm trying to struggle on at the moment.
That's all right. 2 will do. And then, as I say, we've got another couple of weeks until we actually have to run it. So if you need to think about it, you can. And Liz, have you got any ideas for any aspirations?
Yeah, I've put fill a nearly full notebook.
That's a good one. I like that. That's one of my aspirations in life.
Calm an argument. And then the big one would be to achieve independent stature.
Oh, okay. All good. Really like those. Yeah. Nice scaling up. Some of them very achievable, some of them much more kind of long term, but that's great. Fabulous. Aaron, I'll leave you to mull over that last one because I think we might do the last part of the sheet that I genuinely didn't think we'd get a chance to do, but which I find quite enjoyable. You will and it's not too much of a spoiler to tell you this. Roughly, maybe a third of the way into our first session, you will be sent to Bankfleet, having spoken to your editor and got details. And you will be taking a suitcase with you. Now, in this suitcase, you will have various toiletries and overnight things that we're not going to bother listing. 3 outfits that I do want to know about. And 3 things that you would not leave behind. And I do want to know what they are. That's nice and broad. It could be it can be stuff out of the book. It can be things that you think there'll be rules for. It can be just whatever you think is important to your character. But let's make it 3 to keep it concise. Money we'll not worry about for now, because we'll deal with that kind of a bit more in game. And some of you have got different access to different resources based on your personal situation. So we'll not worry about money. But yeah, I want to know about your 3 outfits. I want to know about your 3 treasured possessions, or things that you just wouldn't leave.
I need at least a week to come up with 3 outfits.
Just giving me a sense of maybe what type of outfit, and then if maybe just that, like workwear, a summer dress, and if you want to, draw all your different outfits, then by all means.
Wait, do the polite pajamas count?
No, I'm not going to count pajamas. I'm going to count them as part of your mandatory, overnight stay, toiletries, or whatever. Pajamas, I don't care about, but 3 daytime outfits. I want to know. There's a reason. So while you have a bit of a mull on that one, when I'm talking about these 3 items, they don't actually have to be treasure possessions. They might be things like a book you're reading at that moment in time, or your notebook. I don't think I'm going to count things like keys or wallet, because you just have them. But if maybe you travel with your typewriter everywhere, that's quite a significant piece of kit. If any one of you have a camera, it's totally feasible that you could in this time. They do have some moderately compact cameras in 1911. Of course, now they look like massive boxes, but you could theoretically take them in a suitcase. If you're thinking about weapons, I want you to talk to me about it, because I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that's a conversation. But other than that, it's whatever you can think of. And this is usually when I get comments like, am I allowed to? Or can I have?
I'm letting someone else do that first this time.
Go on, you can have an open question. For the sake of argument, I assume a set of boxing gloves are not actually weaponry.
If you want to...
The character has 2 in Brawl. I decided that his, personal sport to keep fit was a bit of pugilism. Although he's not very good at it.
When did gloves come into boxing?
Ooh, you have a point.
Because
I may be making
Yeah, I think it was during 1911. I think, I may be wrong, I've got a feeling it was kind of more bare knuckles, but they had the tape that they used to wrap around.
And wraps, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's it, yes.
You can have the tape.
I will take that.
More discreet anyway. I don't know what they'd call it, but yeah, you can have boxing tape. Sure, absolutely.
Oh, modern boxing gloves started showing up toward the end of the 1890s, apparently.
Oh. Well, what do I know?
Could I be installed to have a set of leather gloves with sand in their knuckles?
Either way, Sam, I'm happy with either. Bearing in mind, tape will be much more discreet. Boxing gloves, if you're walking around with them, they're a little bit noticeable. So.
That is a point. I assumed you would just leave them in his wherever he's staying, but you have a point.
So, you're cool. Any other questions? Anyone else want to be
So I just looked up like Victorian like what women used as defensive weapons, and
Yeah.
there's like hairpins or like an umbrella. Like, can she have like because like she's a woman on her own. Like she probably should have something. So she have like a sort of parasol with a particularly short.
Yeah, a stabbing parasol. Yes.
Well, a stabbing parasol.
Let me figure out what stats I might use for that. But you can absolutely have a umbrella that's it probably more an umbrella than a parasol, because parasol to me suggests sort of dainty and delicate.
If you want to be tremendously period appropriate, it's about that time that there was a bit of a panic about hat pins being used as women's self-defense, with claims they were being used to kill men.
Well, it was that or the parasol, and I went with the parasol because apparently you have to be really close to use the hat pins.
You do. They are shiv-like in size. This is getting a bit too intimate a description for me to really give life.
So
I will probably give you better stats for a parasol. Sorry, Steve.
that was because I have my outfits and my items.
Ooh, do tell.
So you can start off with his white shirt, his braces, and the peak cap, which are currently on order, and I will have them ready for when we start streaming. He also has his formal suit, although, again, you have to remember this is a working class man who's been to college, so it's a formal suit in the sense of it's a shirt and a tie and a jacket that probably doesn't fit too well. It's certainly not anything of his lordship's calibre, but at least it's presentable. And his third outfit, the most important to him, is, of course, his little pugilist shorts and little T-shirt for when he's doing his boxing training.
Oh God, have we truly somehow synced up mentally here, Steve?
That seems so. However, he does not go for boxing tape because he just uses bare knuckles. And when he does use his boxing in the street, he may also have a set of brass knuckles if the keeper will so allow. It is Birmingham after all.
Brass
Body
knuckles.
called that.
So what's happening here, folks, is method acting, in that Steve and I are apparently building the same character, except one of us went for upper class and one of us went for working class.
If you would like some connection outside of journalism, it could be that you train together in a local sort of establishment of some kind, or another, gymnasium. But that's optional.
Could be.
So, sorry, Steve, what were your three items? Obviously, the...
Sorry, it was a wind-up torch, because I always have a wind-up torch in this game, because they're essential. Brass knuckles, and a technical journal, because he still enjoys reading all of those specifications of the steam engine and other moving parts.
Fantastic. Can you let me know, is this such a little niche thing, but it makes me very happy to think about it. Would it be an up to the minute journal, or would it be maybe from one that you like to flip through, maybe a particular favourite? What do you think?
I think it's probably one that he had whilst he was still studying, so it's probably 10, 15 years out of date, but it's almost like his comfort blanket now. When everyone else would go to bed and either read the Bible or they would read a fiction book, he goes back to his old familiar, well-thumbed-through book, which is just full of his own annotations in the sidelines and the marks, where he's reworked his own calculations or arguing with the writer's fundamentals.
Excellent. Remember that one, because I have a sneaky suspicion that's going to come up. Okay. So did anyone else manage to put together their list of things, or want to ask me a question if I'll allow anything? I've got my weapons info out here.
Bit of both, actually.
Yeah, go on.
Clothing, I'm going for pure casual clothes. It's nothing smart, it's just casual clothes, so it should blend in a bit more. I've got my workman's uniform, so scruffy clothes. And then the suit, jacket, and hat, which I have because that's as much as I can afford. For equipment, I have a lockpick set.
Yeah, that's allowed.
Workers' tools in a bag. So like sort of like hammer, file, sort of thing. Not as a weapon, more as a... Okay.
But that's quite heavy and bulky. So you need to bear in mind, if you're carrying that around,
It's gonna be loud and clunky.
it's a substantial thing. And this is so nitpicky, but I would like you to think about what's specifically in that bag.
Okay. I will narrow it down.
Because it's
Well,
kind of
yeah.
like you found a way to have like 20 things instead of.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, the other one. I don't
Yep.
think like I would have knuckle dusters or anything like that. But could I have a set of leather gloves with a bit of sand which has been sewn into the padding of the knuckles?
Yes. Yes, you can.
It's the poor man's knuckle duster.
It may interest you to know the stats for brass knuckles. Just because if you're doing a rubbish version of brass knuckles, it may interest you to know that pretty much the only benefit to having brass knuckles is it allows you to do lethal damage, but it gives you no additional successes.
That's
Because the
fine.
stats for brass knuckles are like 0, 0.
That's okay.
All right.
For flavour. To show his stature more than anything.
Can you have maybe metal sewn into it rather than sand?
I can do, yeah. I can go for that then.
Just because if you want to make it lethal, I think it needs a little extra something.
Okay.
Okay. Liz, have you figured out your other 2 things? I know you said you want to think about your outfits.
Yeah, I'm gonna need like a week and some sketches. Just get back to you on that.
That's fine.
Obviously, like she's got a notebook that she wants to nearly fill.
Yeah.
But I can't think of like another third thing that would be useful. What's gonna be useful in this campaign? Tell me.
No one's been so cheeky as to ask that. What's going to be useful? Lots of things. You're a person who's sorry.
She's crafty.
You might want something that ties into that then, because if you're particularly good at a certain thing, you might want the tools or equipment for it. I don't know what you said your craft was.
I put repair.
Repair of what?
Crafty thing.
Yeah, you can have like a tool or something, but like are we talking like a bicycle puncture repair kit? Are we talking?
No, like in craft, the repair of craft. In my head, that would have.
Yeah, but it'd be like a sewing kit, or is it like a chisel?
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of thing are you thinking of repairing?
I'm trying to think of something that can cover up all the range.
Of course you are. You want a whole craft box, but you're not having a whole craft box.
Oh, let me have a whole craft box.
AJ Mark II.
Yeah.
You two are so cheap.
Fine, how about this?
It's
I
just-
please have a duffel bag. So over the shelf of the duffel bag. Nothing in it. It's just so if I acquire something, I don't have to keep it in my hands.
Duffel bag's a good shout. You're allowed
Thank
that.
you. Then if I find a hammer, I can put it in there.
What?
Yeah, you can collect as many tools as you want.
A little drawstring pouch, and it's got like a travel, like
Okay.
sewing kit, but it's like a little pair of scissors in there.
Oh, like the kind of thing you'd find in a hotel kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, you can have a travel sewing kit. That's totally fine.
Wait, sorry, you find these in hotels?
Have you
I'm
never seen
feeling
that?
so untravelled right now.
I don't think you find it very much nowadays, but I have seen them when you go to a hotel, like a nice hotel. They might have a little seal.
The old ones did, yeah. That and your Bible.
This may be I'm just not curious enough when I go into hotels. I see the kettle is there, I'm done.
Oh no, you have to go through all the drawers. It's an essential part of travelling.
Yeah.
Oh, no, horrors lurk in that place.
That's going to the wrong places.
That's a place
Right.
the cleaner might have missed.
Those of you who are taking some weapons that aren't really weapons, would you like the stats so we can get them on your sheet?
Yes, although you've already given me mine, 0.
Yeah, yours has strength 1, size 1, and uses brawl to attack. Other than that, it's 0, 0. Steve, sorry. Same for you, AJ.
Mhm.
The parasol, just deciding what to give you in terms of stats. What's your strength, Liz? Will help define this.
1.
Okay. I'm looking for something that's got a size of 2 and a strength of 1 that would be the right equivalent. Because it's definitely size 2. It's not something you can hide in a pocket. Right. I think it's gonna be. I think what we'll do is, yeah, everything. I'm afraid to say everything melee that does damage that doesn't have a blade has to be strength 2 in order to do additional damage. So I'm afraid you could have 0 damage.
That's
But
really
it is
good dex. Like, is there no...
Finesse weapons.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd call a beating someone with a parasol finesse move.
Like a knife with a handle sort of thing.
Not like
All
a
right.
fencing foil.
For sheer cheat, because there are stats for a rapier, but I'm going to make the initiative worse, just so you know. You can have 1 damage, you cheeky so-and-so, but your initiative's -3, all right? That's got you strength of 1 and size of 2.
That's just a gel.
But just so you know, that's a stabbing parasol. Not a beaten parasol, a stabbing parasol.
Could it be a tripping parasol?
It could be a tripping parasol, but I'm not guaranteeing that's going to cause damage.
That's fine.
All right. See, I'm so nice. I'm so nice before I destroy you. Anyone else got anything on outfits that they want to add or items that they had? I don't know, Sam, if we got all your 3 items. I know you were talking about boxing gloves.
No, we didn't. Obviously, I pivoted to tape. Now everyone's taking brass knuckles. I'm feeling very left out, but it feels incorrect for the character.
What do you mean? No,
But
I've got brass knuckles, knuckle dusters.
fair. But that's because you're a plebe. Getting out of character. Anyway, the suits I at least can give you, and the items I'm already set. In terms of obviously having a suit, having his boxing attire, which probably just consist of trousers, socks, and pulled up very high, and shoes to go for the period. And given the character's class, hunting attire. After all, what else is there to do on a weekend? As to the items he's always keeping with him, the aforementioned boxing tape that we discussed earlier, a notebook, because what sort of journalist would be seen dead without a notebook, and some sort of writing implement. I assume that can be taken as read with a notebook. And finally, given his own affection for occultism and the fact that it is actually around the time that this was still a somewhat grotesque fashion. I know of people who grew up in the 50s that still had one. A rabbit's foot charm. Just a little lucky rabbit's foot.
Brilliant. Works for me. Okay, I'm not going to say if that like rabbit's foot actually works or not.
I'm just going to lean into it on the premise of belief when things start going wrong.
I like it. Yes, I encourage you to have faith because then you can lose it.
Because you've got to have faith, and we have to pay if I say any more words of this song.
You're probably right. Let me just I'm just checking one thing though, because you've got the boxing tape. Now that isn't strictly speaking gonna be a weapon, because
I'm fully aware it's basically an unarmed strike.
Yeah. Did you take anything to improve your? I can't remember what you did. You take any close quarters fighting?
A couple of points in brawl, nothing else actually merits wise. So you are tempting me to pivot that for. I mean, he's fully aware of. Well, unless Steve's going to object to me, he's fully aware of Steve's character. So I assume some ability to trade the point of, mate, we're going to a bunch of labour riots. You want something a bit more substantial than tape, is advice that's been received.
It's simply because I do believe that there's specific merits that allow you to have
there are
damage for unarmed, and you to my knowledge, don't have one. So that tape is essentially just decorative.
Yep.
If you want to pivot to the brass knuckle so you can deal lethal, then do so. I'm happy for that, because at the moment it's just yeah.
Much as this now looks like a wonderfully violent little crew, as half us rock up with various forms of punching implements.
But no one's got a firearm, so I thank you for that at least. So just in case you need it, Sam, brass knuckles, 0 damage, 0 initiative, strength 1, size 1, and uses brawl to attack. Right, seems like we're kitted up. Fantastic. Let's just have a quick check. Is there anything anyone's missing? Is there anything anyone wants to ask me? Are there any gaps on people's sheets of things that we wish to fill out? There are a few details I want to add, but before I do that, I want to give you the opportunity.
I miss defense and health and willpower.
Right, so defense is the lowest of either dex or wits plus athletics.
Yeah.
And willpower is your resolve plus your composure.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
What was the other thing you said?
Health.
Health is your stamina plus your size, and your size is 5.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so we should all be caught up now, as far as I know. Okay, last couple of little details. If we pop back to, if you just have a quick look at your description panel, it'd be nice to get a sense of your ages, just for flavour, and to get a sense of how experienced you are in the ways of the world, and which, how au fait you are maybe with the modern era, how much you agree with the way the world is changing, all that sort of thing. So age would be nice, and anything else that you feel like entering in. I'm not going to insist on hair, eyes, height, weight, but it might be nice for you to describe briefly how you envision your character appearing. At the moment, nobody sounds like they're particularly aged, but I could be wrong. And other than Liz, your character sounds quite young, but everyone else sounds like they're in their sort of, I don't know, late 20s, 30s, 40s, nebulously. Just, if we could pin that down a little bit, that'd be great.
I've put 19, but maybe she'd be young.
Whatever age you want, Liz.
Don't know if I'd feel comfortable playing younger than that.
I think 19 is probably good. I feel like 21 would have been the coming of age kind of back then, so I wouldn't have thought it'd be much younger than 19. AJ, what are you thinking for age?
I've just got the 24.
Younger than I thought, but fair enough. Steve, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so I've gone for 36. He's going to have kind of red, kind of like auburny ginger hair and green eyes, I think. I'm going to go with the name Connor.
I don't want to make assumptions, but we've got some kind of Celtic heritage, maybe Irish, or is that too?
Yeah, I think it's probably this Irish heritage, but it's not directly him. It's just kind of more kind of like within the family.
Sure. And how about, we actually don't have a name for your character yet, Sam, so I will ask you that in a minute. But
Oh, you did get it earlier. It just came out in passing in conversation. Sir Reginald Grey.
Reginald Grey, Sir Reginald Grey.
Indeed.
How old are you and what do you look like?
Well, earlier I described him as having the impetuousness of youth. So as I roll toward, let's call him mid-20s, make him a 25-year-old as I chase the vague sensation during these sessions of not being as old as I am. Although Steve's going to look at me and roll his eyes at that. Couldn't resist.
Well, I can't pay my real age because I'd be pretty terminal, I believe.
In terms of hair and eyes, I look unimaginative, but I will just plop for what was actually fairly average in the UK at that time, which was still brown across the board.
Fair enough. Lovely. Liz, AJ, I don't know if we actually discussed what you look like. Liz, have you got any ideas for what you look like, or do you need time to craft this?
I need time to craft.
That's perfectly fine. Aaron, what about you?
He's going to be bald at a young age.
I respect that choice.
Yeah, bald but aged. Wow, thanks. I have got hair under here. There's been many rumours. People with the shot taken off my hat to check quite often. Looks rather aged. I was going to make a comment on the fact he's young, but he's got experience. The poor don't have the pleasantries of not having to work at a young age or struggle to make money.
That's a really good point, actually. You've reminded me of something you mentioned earlier off camera. It'd be quite nice to have a note of people's family situation at present. Do you have, obviously, those of you who are from a wealthy background maybe have very affluent parents. I mean, it might be that your family's been beset by tragedy. Maybe you're all on your own. Maybe you've got lots and lots of brothers and sisters. Those of you who are from a poorer background, you always definitely have come from like a large family, even if some died young. And maybe you might have your own spouse, your own children, your own partner of some kind. So something to think about. If any of you have already thought about it, feel free to share. If not, you can always hold it in your back pocket if you want it to be not common knowledge.
Could I finish off with my advice as well? I don't know if this will quite work, but he is poor, is cripplingly poor. I don't know if that might be advice there in some way when it comes to being able to afford to do what everyone else is doing in the group, or his lack of wealth making us cross at times and things are brought up.
Could proud be one if you want to sort of hide that fact? Or maybe
Yeah. Greed is that,
greed, something like that, because again, being poor is not a vice, but the way you describe it sounds like it'd either be one of those things.
Yep, probably like that.
If you want to be tremendously sad, then the fact that the character is very poor would lend to food insecurity, and people who grow up food insecure tend to have a very poor relationship with food in terms of, it is there, I will eat. Doesn't matter if I will keep going. No sort of survival thing you learn. So yeah, you could go for gluttony. It would work.
Classic.
Yeah. Fancy word for
Any
a
of
poor person.
Brilliant. Were there any other gaps we skated over? I know there are a few points where I said, right, we'll move on and come back to that if needed. Anything anyone's still unsure about, or any gaps to fill?
No.
I think we're pretty well through it.
Just to give you a bit of background, since you did ask a second ago, cat-back families, I had kind of given this a bit of thought, and I think Connor himself was from a fairly large family, which is fairly standard at the time, so he was one of 6 siblings. But as he's got older, he did get married, although sadly his wife died a few years ago to disease, and he's now left with 3 children, one of whom is themselves about 13, so that kind of, they're just verging on adulthood and can look after the other 2 children, but the other 2 are much younger. So I thought it'd be fun to bog him down with family.
Fantastic. Can I ask, who's going to be looking after them while you're doing your job when you're off?
So the older child, who is age 13, would have technically finished school now. So they are the one that's looking after. But obviously they are only a child technically themselves. So I would leave them with them because no particular social services, and that was a done thing then. But I certainly wouldn't be able to leave them all the time. So when we do have to go off to Bankfleet, I will have to find some arrangements, maybe call in some favours with the other family members.
Lovely. Yeah, it is something you might need to think about, but I really love the fact that you've given yourself some dependence. It's a nice little hook there. Anyone else got any ideas in terms of family, anything they want to share? Obviously, this is optional knowledge.
I finally cleaved away from Steve. Our mental link is broken. As I'm making this character actually getting a bit up there for his bachelorhood. To the point that an ambition is actually to find someone to settle with, because it's starting to get embarrassing. It's part of the complaints from his parents, whom, if he doesn't solve this soon, are cutting him off.
Okay. So settling down, you could add that as a 4th aspiration.
It is actually one already, don't worry.
Oh, fantastic. Aaron, you
it
got
was
any
written as
ideas?
obtain a wife, but I'll write it less in character.
Obtain a wife. Of course. Aaron, where are you up to with family? Because you were the one who initially brought this up.
Yeah, I brought it up initially with more of an older character in mind, but I'm going to go for mother passed away. Dad works as kids, siblings sort of thing, but whether or not what they're up to, it's not known. It's go to school, earn money yourself, bring your own food onto the table. As for Frank, we'll see. He's been around the streets a little bit. There might be some sprogs here or there, but he isn't really in touch with them. It's more goes down the pub. What happens happens. Might get to a couple of scraps though if he doesn't get lucky. Might upset a couple of married men. But beyond that, he doesn't really keep tabs on it. But there could very well be little Frank Jr. here or something.
Would you say you're more of a fighter than a lover?
More of a fight if he gets caught. Yes.
Brilliant. Liz, how about your family situation?
Well, she came from like an upper class family, but yeah, kind of like ran away to pursue, something that was her own. So even though she'd come from upper class, she's now like living in the attic of this working class family. While she does a little intern job at that.
Sure. Any siblings or anyone that you keep in contact with the old family, or are you very much like, no, cut off, fresh life?
No, I can imagine, maybe her parents wouldn't approve, but she probably like writes to her sister and keeps her updated. Maybe a younger sister.
I like that as a detail. That's quite nice. Okay, fantastic. So the plan is to end at about 10. So we're pretty much there, everybody. I think we've got everything we need for now. Sounds to me like we're all prepared. One or two. Liz, I know you want to do a little bit more work on the visual components of your character, which is perfectly fine, and I respect that. In terms of character art, maybe we can get that organised. The wonderful Art Miser obviously did a lot of work for the Fallout campaign. He's in much demand lately, so maybe we'll get some character designs from him. Maybe we won't. If you could give me a brief description when it's available, if you give me a brief description of your characters, maybe we can throw them his way. If not, we'll see what we can do. If he's not available, we'll see what we can do to source some other character designs. Because it's always nice to have a visual reference. But I think we've covered everything we want. Can I just ask, though, this is a very self-indulgent question. What are your hopes for this campaign? And is there anything that you really, really hope doesn't happen in this campaign? I'd just like to know what your expectations are. And maybe your fears, for no particular reason.
I guess for the things I hope don't happen is I really don't want to be eaten again because it's not nice.
Okay, I'll on board, taking that on board. You would like to, I mean, obviously you've got your aspirations as a character, but as a player, do you have any aspirations? Because sometimes we might want things to happen that our characters would hate to happen.
I just think that for me, the opposite to the character doesn't want to be eaten. The character wants to go on and live a long and fruitous life. For me, it's kind of fun to have that heroic death.
It isn't.
Because yours weren't heroic.
One was.
Oh, fantastic. Good answers. Thank you very much. Sam, what about yourself? Something that you would like to happen, maybe something you wouldn't like to happen?
Well, I was sort of holding back just out of mild announcements attached to this one. Based on schedule, will be leaving partway through this campaign, just to let the audience know ahead of time. The birth of my second child is due, partway through our schedule. Tremendously exciting. But to come back to the ambition, because I'm not a show person, my hope is to survive long enough that I leave this campaign still alive. Basically, I would like not to die. I think all of us would like to not die, apparently, which I think is a reasonable ambition.
Is it? Okay.
Mm.
We'll see what we can do with that. Aaron, do you have an ambition that you personally as a player have in the campaign? Anything that you fear for the campaign?
You know what I'd actually like to happen, because we've done it once before, where me and Liz actually defeated the big bad and then died through the actions of the rest of the group.
That's because
I
you didn't
would
follow
like
the
to
basic
maybe
rule of run away.
succeed and not die.
You
I
were
think
given
that might be quite nice.
warnings.
There was plenty of warnings.
Good God.
Maybe not to be the first one to throw the punch would be quite nice. That's normally my character. I normally do play a quick, responsive character. I think the latest one I did, I played more of an emotional character with no combat at all. But maybe to get the balance correctly, I played both ends of the spectrum. But somewhere in the middle would be quite nice for myself.
All right. And
So
Liz,
it's a
is there anything
second punch.
Second punch. Second punch is much safer.
Final punch I'm going for.
Yes, the best. Best punch. And Liz, how about yourself? Something that you as a player would like to achieve and anything that you would like to avoid?
I would just like you to hopefully include some spooky situations and shenanigans, because as we witnessed last time, you are a great master of spooks. So I hope that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. We'll see what there is in store. I hope I don't disappoint.
Oh,
All
I
right.
took it as read. I'm going to be frightened at one point or another.
So I hope so. I'm not doing my job if nobody gets spooked ever. But on that note, that takes us pretty much up to the bell. So thank you, wonderful players, for coming and making characters. It makes me feel very relaxed to know that we have this in the bag and we're ready to start the campaign. We kind of know who we are pretty much. That's brilliant. And it means that if you have some ideas, you want to send me the things you want to incorporate, I can. There's little things I can do to incorporate your ideas, which is always brilliant. And anyone who's been joining us, thank you very much for being here and spending time with us. We really appreciate it.
Definitely.
Does anyone else have any messages or anything they'd like to say before we sign off
Just
for this Monday?
to echo what you said, kind of thank you to everyone for watching, and a huge thank you to you, Kat, for putting this all together. Very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will see everyone again Thursday, if not somehow before. On a personal note, I really enjoyed this evening. I understood the message. Message you tomorrow and ask when are we doing character generation for your campaign, just to wind you up. But no, I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, in that case, thank you all of you. Thank you particularly Steve, because he's been the OBS master tonight, which I can't do. He's sorted out the layouts. He's done the text. He's done the Twitch widdly woos.
I did the thing. With the thing.
That's right. Whatever that was. But yeah, so we'll see you all on Thursday, and good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.